Hello, hello, and welcome to Sustainability Explored. Every week, this podcast navigates a new topic through interviews with the most disruptive minds in sustainability, turning their experiences working behind the scenes into actionable advice you can implement and use in your life no matter your background. My name is Anna. I'm an environmentalist, sustainability consultant, and the host of this very show. And today with me, I have Andjela Djuraskovic. She is coming from Montenegro, environmental activist. She has her own environmental online educational business, and this is going to become our topic for today. It's going to become our focus. Angela, I let you introduce yourself, what exactly you do in Montenegro and beyond, and how you started your path in sustainability.
Thank you so much, Anna. Hello, everyone, whether you're listening or watching. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Andjela Djuraskovic, and as Anna announced me, I'm an environmental activist, recently more going towards educator and entrepreneur. So recently I founded my own company. It's an online company called Eko Korijen LLC, and it focuses on environmental education, uh, mainly targeting the wider audience. So it focuses on teaching people how to green their lifestyles in their household, how to green their business practices, and the third pillar, which is the pillar I am mostly focused on in the past few months and have been most focused on in the past few months, is teaching people who are within the community of environmentalists, environmental educators, and activists how to bridge the gap between what they are doing and the wider audiences, the so-called lay people. So bringing focus onto the effectiveness of their communication. So communicating environmental topics, doing education in a way that is approachable, that is understandable, and that has that connection visible from the perspective of the person who is listening, not only from the perspective of us who are trying to make people realize how important it is to talk about, whether it's climate crisis, environmentalism in general, or any specific topic within it. So the company is young. It's only 2.5 months young. I started it as an Instagram page on purpose more than half a year ago, with the idea to first start listening, to start gathering. I had the audience that I wanted to address in mind, mostly millennials, people from the Western Balkans region, mostly from the former Yugoslav region, who understand the language and who are interested in environmental topics, but are not necessarily directly involved in it through their work. Uh, and they have recognized, for example, that maybe plastic is a problem, waste is a problem, illegal activities all over the place are a problem for the environment, but they don't know what to do with that awareness. And it started slowly. First, I began talking with people online. I introduced an online book club, and every month, we've seen for 7 months now, we have been reading a green title related to sustainability, but again, that is not so written in a way that requires a person to be educated for a specific degree. So it's so-called popular science, and it has been going wonderfully. People are interested. It's a small community. It's increasing slowly, but I realize that especially now with the pandemic, the market is saturated with online content, and to have people come back month after month, for me, it's a success already, and it's a very exciting process, and it's really, really rewarding just to be there and to have those conversations with the people. Now, as for myself, I'm 27 years old. I'm from Olsztyn, from the Montenegrin seaside, currently living in Podgorica, the capital city. I have gotten a master's degree in environmental policy, and before that, a bachelor's degree in journalism. Uh, my first steps in the environmental circles were in elementary school when I began attending cleanup activities and reforestation activities. And then in the past, let's say 10 years, through high school and university studies, I began attending different types of seminars, then later international events where I represented Montenegro on conferences and workshops related to sustainability. Uh, Later, then worked for the NGO sector after, again, as I mentioned, volunteering for quite some time. And also, I worked for a short time through one program by Climate Kick for a startup in Malta. So there was that business experience. And then, of course, since I had a degree in journalism, there was a few years of experience of writing on topics related to sustainability. So I like to call myself a very versatile eco enthusiast with a degree in social sciences. And that's basically, I think, what I do in short.
Having worked in media, NGO sector, startup, now having your own company, what would you say are the set of soft skills that one should possess to be successful in all four areas, or maybe how it's different to be in one of this, in one of each of these areas?
Well, that's a great question. I think the skill set is the same, but the way we approach it is different. For example, the as I grow older and more involved into the field of sustainability from a different points of view, I see how important empathy is and the ability to listen. Now, for journalists, that listening is most related to listening to the types of stories you people listening first of all in order to find the story, then to see what people want to hear, especially in the clickbait area we are living in, but also it being a journalist requires, because of that, constantly juggling between what is your intention to do and then the need of the market to tailor the content that you are creating in order for it to first of all be visible to people, because you can create a wonderful report on something, a wonderful feature, and it can be pushed somewhere to the side, and up in front can be different types of pseudoscience articles. And then that's another problem that journalists have to have, and that also have to deal with, and it also has to do with listening. So finding that balance between what we were taught during studies to, when you report on something, to give both sides an equal place to be heard, but at the same time, especially when it comes to topics related to the climate crisis, not letting it seem like the person who has the facts backing them that are related to how serious climate crisis really is, to have the same weight in the article as the person who is talking about pseudoscience. So that's listening from the perspective of a journalist. Listening from the perspective of a business is listening because business essentially is making money by solving problems for people. For this area specifically, it also has to do with solving the problems people don't necessarily think they should pay for them to be solved. Because especially in developing countries like Montenegro, environmental topics are still something that the wider community dominantly believes should be addressed by activists, by people from relevant institutions. So me as a layperson should deal with putting food on the table, working 9 to 5, seeing how will I survive during the times of the pandemic, which is especially a stressful time. And we need to understand that. But then not tying the idea of making money by also having some kind, bringing some kind of benefit to the community uh, with the way of me making money. So there's that gap. And the people who want to be entrepreneurs and who want to work in a sustainable way have to have the ability to listen to what do people need, and then listening to the needs of the ecosystem and to their own
Compass.
guidances. Yes, ethical compass, thank you. On how do I merge the two. And then for NGOs, it's again about listening, but also about constant research, because there's so many things to do. I often joke that I don't have to move out of Montenegro in order to find a job. If it were for environmental problems only, I would have enough work here for a lifetime, although it's a small country, one of the smaller ones in Europe. And it's true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I can make a living by addressing all of them. And the NGO sector has that position of bridging the gap between an institution and the lay people, and bringing into focus some destruction from the front lines. So when there's people building small hydropower plants and invading a certain community, especially in rural areas, and especially now when there's times of isolation, when people can't go out in the streets and protest as in a way that we could do before the pandemic. So there's that aspect of listening, but also constantly juggling, because you want to be seen, you want to be effective, but you also need to constantly apply for funds, research how can you finance your work, and you can't do it alone. And you also need to listen to your own needs, because otherwise you'll burn out in the process. So for me, the main soft skill would be listening.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned briefly
Mhm,
activism in digital era.
mhm,
How does it happen? You know, previously,
mhm,
and I see a lot of people on the net joking about Greta Thunberg. Aha, now in the lockdown and the pandemic, where are all those activists? Where is Greta when the streets are closed? How to express yourself? How to express your voice in terms of environmental activism, especially in the digital era? How successful were you and the
uh,
team?
so far it's going well, but there are some elements that one should have in mind that can that can easily get people off track. And if you're off track in that way, then you're more contributing to the problem than to the process of solving it. And that's clicktivism. So the clicktivism in its essence, environmental clicktivism in its essence, is publishing online content that is engaging but of small risk. So there's small risk for you in publishing it, in expressing your needs, or your unmet needs in that way, expressing support for someone in a low risk way, and in a way that isn't necessarily requiring a lot of involvement from you. So it's shallow. And that can be a huge danger now, because people can post a lot of photos online of them holding different types of transparents from their houses, demonstrating support for someone. And then on the other side, for them, continuing their usual practices, I don't know, throwing trash out of the window of their cars while driving to work, things like that. Or more recently, taking off their single-use masks and then throwing them wherever, not where medical waste should be placed. So collectivism is a huge problem. And what I've seen is an increasingly uh, growing number of petitions, and then petitions on various platforms. And people don't even sometimes do the research before that to see, does my government, does the person or institution or organization I want to address even accept signatures collected through this platform? What can I do? How many are enough? And then it gives people who sign the petition, who share a certain photo, who share a certain video, who read a certain article, that false sense of having contributed to something when in fact it's energy being wasted. So that's a huge danger of the online space. And the only way I've seen that you can go around it is by clearly sitting down, putting on a piece of paper of what is it that you want to accomplish, and then putting down also the list of levels of how can people contribute, and then putting that list online whenever you communicate the message that you want to communicate. For example, it can be an, let's say, Instagram post saying a like makes no difference. What makes a difference is a donation to our organization on this account in minimally this amount. Then that is the way of you to make sure that the person seeing that post and liking it, even though they're liking it, they know it's not the minimum amount of effort required to show support for your work. So defining those levels, and then I always suggest using levels because people, first of all, it's gamification that always works, turning life into a game, especially now, the more fun, the merrier. Giving people options when it comes to how much they feel they want to be involved. So for someone, maybe a donation can be a level 2 or level 3, but level 1 can be copying the text of an email and then emailing their representative on the local level because you started an email campaign and you want to flood the inbox of a certain public administration office. So defining those levels is very effective because then usually people who consider themselves as environmentalists will go for the top tiers immediately. And you can ensure that there's a slighter, the chances of energy being wasted in the process are much, much smaller.
You mentioned, well, you are in the online, you use online space as a
Yes,
tool for education, and this is what your business is about. Can you tell us more about your business? What
yes.
exactly you sell? How does it work? What's the goal, and who are the ideal customers?
The business so far has an online course. It's the first online course in this language area dealing with an environmental topics, and more precisely, the first. Well, the business is the first organization specifically targeting environmental communication. It's not such a popular topic yet here because
By the
it
way,
seems.
which
Mhm.
language? Which
Uh,
language?
well, it's called the, how do they call it? The BCMS group, Bosnian, Croatian, Montenegrin, Serbian group of languages. Essentially, it's Montenegrin because I'm from Montenegro, but it can be understood by these the people from the
Mhm.
who speaking
No content in
the
English.
yeah, there's no content in English yet. My analysis, the research I've done before starting my work has shown that there's a lot of content in English. And in fact, when I asked the people who are already in the book club, there's about 20 something, 24, 25 people at the moment in it, whether they would be interested in continuing to come to our meetings and continuing reading once we run out of titles that are written in our languages, because that number of titles isn't so large at the moment, and then switching to English. Not all of them were so happy. They
Comfortable.
would, yes, exactly,
Mhm.
they would come to discussions. They said that they would gladly listen to others, maybe hear someone give the summary of what the book was all about, but they don't feel that much confidence into their language skills in order to read in English language. And for me, that was a clear sign that there's a gap in the market. Okay, there's a lot of there's so much content in English available. There's also so much content in our languages, but it's sitting somewhere in PDF files, in Excel tables, and it needs to be brought into the public eye, but it needs to be done in a way that's not so aggressive, that's not so full of putting pressure on people, shaming people. And that's how I first of all went at the same time in the direction of publishing content uh, in this group of languages, but also publishing content related to science communication, more specifically environmental communication. So that's the first product. It's the online course. It's available for purchasing online. It has 4 videos, and it's a 6-day course, meaning on the first and the last day, you get an evaluation, a survey to fill out so that I can gain some more insights into your needs, into your ambitions, why you want to, what you're working on, what's your goals. And then on each of the 4 days, there's a video lesson and a workbook to accompany it. And then on the 4th day, there's also an ebook called 101 Ideas for Your Online Content that can be adapted for anyone depending on their needs for any type of online content, whether it's for social media, for blogs, podcasts, and that is all related to environmental topics. So yeah, I'm really proud of that one, I have to say.
That's amazing. But my question is, I'm asking this question in my head and I'm stopping myself at the same time. How to incentivize people to pay for it, given the fact that there is so much free available information online, different languages, different authors. What is your hook? How do you make it sellable?
For me,
I will add a little bit. Why I'm
uh-huh,
stopping myself is also because, you take, for example, nutrition. Sure,
mm-hmm,
there is lots of free information online on all sorts of diets, all sorts of products, but you need a curator, probably is the
mm-hmm,
right word, to walk you through that content, the masses of the content, um, in an understandable, environmentally friendly, really ecological way. So what is it in
mm-hmm.
your case? Are you curating? Are you selling it as a curator?
For me, I'm selling it as from a point of it's applicable no matter what you're doing. So there's not that aspect of I've done all the job for you. It's here's a workbook, here's a video lesson, but there's also the part that you need to do in order for it to be more effective. Because the key aspect of all, and while I'm selling it, the key word is effectiveness. So making communication more effective, not wasting time, not wasting opportunities to engage someone, not pushing them away. And from what I've seen while talking to people is that uh, the the hook has actually turned out to be people's oversaturation with negative content. There is a lot of content on environmental topics already, but there's so much shame being involved, so much putting pressure on people, so much from the negative side. And I understand it completely because uh, only what is happening right now and what has happened already, so not talking about the predictions and possible scenarios, is enough to make we're lucky we have defense mechanisms, because otherwise we would fall apart completely from all the bad things that are happening at the moment. So and it's not unusual that it makes a person who is in the environmental field, whether through academic work, NGO work, institution, or business, feel maybe even some guilt if they wanted to communicate with others in a more positive way, or by focusing on creativity, by focusing on solutions rather than focusing on problems. So for me, it's understandable, but also research and practice show that it's inefficient and that it is not effective as well. It also can have a completely opposite effect. While you're putting pressure on people to change their behaviors, you're contributing to the whole area of sustainability and people involved in it looking like this negative bubble And especially in times when there's so much negativity, we can look at the political situations all over the world, my country included. We can look at the health situation all over the world. People don't need another bubble that's negative where there's constantly gonna be others telling them they're wrong, they're not doing enough. And that's exactly what's happening. So for me, the biggest magnet has been creating a place and creating a product that's not that, that actually advocates for another way and kind of goes through the pressures of others, because there's people who are not happy with, there's always people who are not happy with positive approach to this, and they're usually pretty vocal about it. But I'm also pretty vocal about defending what I think is necessary and what I read and constantly research about and can see that makes a difference. And it became a magnet, that aspect of here's something that's positive, but it's a guide and it will help me uh, involve people, because people, myself being included as well up to recently, are tired from being pushed negative content down their throats, but are also tired of them having to persuade others. And usually they're surprised when the message I get most often is, how do I persuade my colleague, family member to change this or that type of behavior? And my answer is always the same. First of all, you don't persuade them. No one likes persuading, and we can't live in a world where I personally hate being told what to do and then through my job constantly telling people what to do. It makes no sense. So starting with ourselves, so what do I like, what works on me, and then bringing that into the world has really shown to be a great magnet, I have to say.
You know, you're not the first one to say, to mention, to talk about shaming. I
Hmm.
recently had a talk with someone who is a life organizer, a professional declutterer, and the person who helps, you know, first solving your psychological urges to accumulate, buy more, and so on. And then people are drowning in this masses of things that they don't use. They don't even remember they have them. And this is something she said, like, I base my work every day with every client. I communicate without shame. I don't say you should have. I don't say, haven't you seen? Didn't you know? I say, it's okay. We accept this. We solve it. We move on. In this negativity, especially in 2020, continuing through 2021, the pandemic, lockdowns, lots of negative and dry statistics also, like that many dead, that many contaminated, sit home, masks now end up in the oceans. How in that negativity, health-wise, environmental-wise, and so on, psychologically, how to navigate your way as a business owner, as also as someone who wants to be vocal, but positively vocal about changes, how to find your way and how to find, I would say, your tribe, your crowd. Where are these people? How to find them? How to communicate ecologically?
Um, that's also a really good question. Uh, it, I think it boils down to authenticity, because most of the people in the environmental field are negative because they're doing, not because they like it, not because they enjoy it, but they're doing what everyone else is doing. And they come into the field, especially younger people, they want to change something. And especially with the increase of interest in the startup scene, there's an increase, a growing culture of people who are interested in innovating the system, but also who are interested in going through different ways of solving different problems quickly. And that speed is what differs them from the previous generations who kind of took their own pace, did things in a more slow way. And then in the middle of that, those young people can choose either to adapt to the system or to bring the way in which they construct their message, what they want to do, um, into the world. Social media are a great example of that. YouTube is a great example of that. Blogging, podcasts, all that starts with an intention. So, what was your intention when you started this podcast?
My intention was to stop retelling people what I was doing in my professional work. So first 10 episodes um, are really the documentation of my 3 years in the corporate position. Then my intention changed. I realized how much I don't know, and I started to expand the circle of my knowledge by interviewing people from the areas of life that I couldn't even imagine exist. For example, one of the first interviews one was on green office.
Mhm.
What is it? I don't know. Tell me. And then I'm like, okay, oh, maybe I can create a green office example pilot project in the organization I'm working at. And then so on and so forth, sustainable finance, sustainable bed sheets, construction materials, and so on. So for me, this was the way to touch the rest of the world. And while I was learning it for myself, I was also sharing it with the people. Now, by the way, people from the last time I counted, 105 countries are listening to this
Well
podcast.
done. That's
Zero
great.
ads, zero sponsorships, just me and my wonderful guests, such as you. But
Thank you.
still, there is a lot of anxiety. You cannot say there
Hmm.
isn't. Even in people who are
Hmm.
seemingly positive,
Hmm.
they want to do good things, they want to transmit a good message, they meet with anxiety globally, I mean,
Hmm.
not just me sometimes.
No, I mean, that's there are some things that this here's the reason why I asked you this question. I said authenticity, and authenticity means showing the good sides and the bad side as well. And you mentioned something in your answer that is vital to what I wanted to say as well, which is you realized that there's a lot of stuff you already don't know and wanted to explore further. So it's finding a tribe comes down to being authentic, including showing examples of eco anxiety, being open, and showing curiosity instead of egomania if you don't know something. And that's a huge problem as well, especially books have shown it, research has shown it, there's books on it. And also, when I did research for my master thesis, I could see that I addressed through my master thesis, I addressed the topic of the work of Montenegrin NGOs in the field of biodiversity protection. And there's a lot of organizations, they are NGOs, but you call them this person's NGO. For example, Anna's organization. So it's not an organization, it is a synonym for the person who's leading it. And then sometimes it can also lead towards people who become volunteers also treating it as working in the for the property of that person who is in charge, not for the cause. So that can happen if you become too attached to what you already know and
Or
refuse
you
to
have a
become
very
more.
strong personal brand.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, that's different. I mean, to have a strong personal brand, there's people in Montenegro who have a very strong personal brand, but when they gather a lot of volunteers around them, a lot of people around them, people feel empowered. Like they are part of, for example, Anna's group, but not employed by Anna, not working for Anna, but working with Anna. There's a big
Mhm.
difference for that. There's a big difference in that, and it also has to do with how open you are to welcoming new people, to welcoming the fact that there's people who know what you don't know, and there's always going to be stuff that you don't know that you won't be an expert for. um, so there's that as well. And then relating to eco anxiety is, again, authenticity. For me, one of the things that I did online that has been the most successful thing so far, one of the most successful things so far, has been a series of posts on failures. I called it in Montenegrin, it's Eko Promašaj, eco failures, where I talked. Each was a story about the thing I missed from the perspective of an environmentalist. For example, the time I threw away the food because I put too many spices and I had to throw everything, the whole batch, into the trash. Yeah. And then the time I was going to be a moderator at an event that I organized that was an eco conference, and I was to moderate a panel, and I realized I had no suitable attire for that, for my weight at the time. And but it was already late, the event was tomorrow, and nothing was working except Zara. And yeah, those fast fashion shops. So I entered Zara like a guilty person, and then browsed around, and then bought them. And I stopped being guilty about it, like after 10 or 15 times of wearing them, because at that point I already felt like, oh, okay, now they are becoming something sustainable because I've been wearing them for a longer period of time. And then of course the times that I couldn't evade you getting a plastic bag in a shop, so things like that. And that opens the discussion, that shows that mistakes are acceptable, that shows that anyone at any level can join in. So that has also helped. And then for that type of transparency, this is normal, we keep going, uh, is also what I apply to eco anxiety as well. So for me, it's a process. I mean, it happens. It's not the time where there are things, there's negative types of there's types of content that uh, make me feel like I'm not welcome in the environmental circles because they're structured in a you can't sit with us kind of way. And that's what I don't want to be. That's who I don't want to be. I don't want to be that person. I don't want anyone to feel like they can't contribute. Now, do they feel like they can contribute through my platform or others? That's another question. But I want to be the person that publishes content that uh, is inclusive. Now, whether or not someone likes my approach, that's a different thing. And the eco anxiety is something we live with. I mean, it comes in waves, in tides, and it ebbs and flows. And uh, the sooner a person accepts that, the easier it's going to be. And then at the same time, the more transparent they are, and that again brings us back to the authenticity part. When you're transparent about having an anxiety attack, feeling unproductive, feeling unmotivated, feeling overwhelmed with the amount of problems, the severity of the problems, if you're transparent about that as well, chances are higher that someone's going to recognize the struggle and then reach out, and then is going to pull you out of how you're feeling and orientate you towards slowly picking up the pace, contributing in some smaller ways if you can, at the place where you're at under full blown eco anxiety attack. So
You
that's
just
how it
gave
goes.
me you just gave me a brilliant insight. I realized that people, when they learn about my profession, oh, what do you do? I'm an environmentalist. They get scared for, oh my God, I'm wearing a fur coat. What will she think of me? And, in autumn 2020, I worked with the stylist to redo my wardrobe. Everything was not inspiring joy, using Marie Kondo's words. And she came back to me, the lady came back to me with the map of style, and somewhere there was a blue winter fur coat. And first thing she said was like, I know you told me you want a minimalist lifestyle, you want a minimalist wardrobe, and you're an environmentalist, the eyes like this, scared. But I swear I found this one, it's made of artificial fur. Like it's artificial. Like, and then I was like, oh, but I don't judge you. I don't judge anyone. And never in my posts or in my communication, I was like, man, don't do that. Oh, how dare you buy in actual fur. It does not inspire me, but I'm my own person. Yes, I wouldn't buy a natural fur coat. Yet, if I had one from my grandma who got hers from her grandma, and I would be, the fifth generation to wear it, yes, I would do that. And I would do it happily because in this case, this actual natural fur coat would have less weight for the environment than the artificial one that I would be
Exactly.
wearing for just my own probably lifetime, maybe even less than my life, less years.
True.
So I was like,
True.
no, you look at things in complex, but then, you just made me realize how important is to have an open dialogue to not scare people by who you are. Oh, plastic bags versus paper bags. There is no one right answer that I can give you. I don't like either of them. I personally go with my own bags, be it plastic. Please go ahead, be my guest. If you're using them for 20 times, 30 times, reusing them for your veggies and fruits, there is no problem about that. But definitely, definitely, I see that people are scared to do anything because they're scared of doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's true. And there's two good sides to being more transparent about all aspects of how we do life, how we do work, how we do activism, whether it's a hobby or work. So it's all intertwined. Um, First of all, you give yourself permission to be public about making mistakes as well. So it has that liberating effect on you, and it also has uh, that eliminates the chances of someone being coming to you and saying, "Oh, but you're throwing that away, and you're supposed to be an environmentalist." And you can always say, "I'm transparent about it. There's no worries." Especially in the now we're coming back to the place of the digital space where everything seems so wonderful, so photogenic, so perfect, so ideally constructed to show real life with all its ups and downs is a rebellion on its own. So there's that side. And then there's that side that you mentioned related to inclusivity. I have most of my friends actually aren't from the environmental circles. They're people I've met when I was a child while I was studying journalism. So they're in different branches, working usually on completely unrelated things. And even they said that after, and also family for everyone watching, as people from the Balkan Peninsula have the habit of and the culture of really relying on our big families, on our aunts and uncles. For us, the family is the whole deal, all tens of people, and even family members like my cousins said that after seeing that uh, series of posts on eco failures, they felt more comfortable when I was visiting because they didn't feel the need to like hide away the plastic bags because Andjela might be triggered or things like that, because I wasn't triggered even before, but before I had to individually come and say, no, it's okay. No, you can eat meat in front of me. No, no, it's okay. Yeah, you can carry your plastic bag. No, I know you will go shopping in a shopping mall. No problem. I'll accompany you. I just won't buy anything. So things like that. And it's worked wonders. It's really worked wonders.
That's amazing. What are your aspirations and dreams, business wise, environmental wise, for 2021?
For 2021, well, Eko Korijen is registered as a consultancy and as a publishing business. So my goal, I already have a ebook in PDF that's free to download on how to communicate environmental topics related to fight against detrimental projects in the online space. Uh, and my dream for 2021 is to actually publish a hard copy book, so actually a paperback book that's on made out of Forest Stewardship Council certified paper, and that's
Exciting.
recycled and soy ink, and to kind of dive into that aspect of uh, education through content that is going to be aimed for the wider audience, that not only can we discuss in the book club, but also people can use as a manual. So it will be a title probably related to something uh, from the field of sustainable habits in the household, because in Montenegro we're having huge problems with waste. So with waste prevention, with waste disposal, with uh, illegal landfills, so all things like that. So a book probably on zero waste lifestyle. We will see how it goes, but I'm very excited. So that's the plan. And then my other plan is, because my goal is to address this area, and I like to go outside as well. I like to travel. I like to collaborate and to participate in this type of projects. I love it. Um, while at the same time I feel like this area where I live needs more focus, and to do that it needs our languages. So if I were lucky to expand the team next year, I would love for that to be a person speaking Albanian who can translate the course into Albanian language, and who can start publishing the content that I create, and that hopefully we will jointly create in Albanian language, that will serve not only the Albanian speaking people in Montenegro, but also people from Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, so all over the Balkans.
That sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Really. About zero waste, when you said you want to publish a book, is it going to be something applicable specifically in the Balkans region? I assume the situation with waste management is something like in Ukraine, where you'd rather die than actually live to the point when the government does something about waste management on a global scale. The landfills are overfilled, and so really the only way is to go zero waste and to do it as collectively, as in scale as possible. In Montenegro, what is the situation with waste management? Not zero waste, but with waste management on a regional level.
Oh, well, the situation is very, very bad. We have huge problems, actually. In fact, recently, the report has been published that shows that out of all the Mediterranean countries, Montenegro is the one contributing mostly to the pollution of the Mediterranean Sea by plastic waste. So that's on us. And the amount of waste that person creates in Montenegro keeps increasing year after year, which is also a very concerning uh, piece of information. At the moment, that number is around 2.5 kilograms per person per day. We have to take into consideration that that is related to the amount of waste that has been collected, and not the amount of waste that is being illegally dumped. So we don't have any idea on the amount of that type of waste. Now, in the times of the pandemic, I have to say another problem that has been shown, and that has me worried, is the improper disposal of medical waste used by the public, which is the face masks and the gloves. So although it's for all of us, it's not only for the people working in medical institutions, it still counts as medical waste. It still needs to be destroyed properly and treated properly. And we can see face masks be ending up in the waters of Montenegro. We can see it on the streets, in the parks, and it's not a pretty picture. So there are initiatives. There's an increasing number of initiatives who that are working on this problem. We have an NGO that's called Zero Waste Montenegro that addresses waste prevention, and that even brought Bear Johnson, so the person who created the whole concept of zero waste lifestyle, and they were the platform that enabled her lecture in Montenegro, here in capital city, a few years ago. But it's still in picking up very slowly. Again, because of the main problem with all environmental topics, and that is, me as a person, and especially in the Balkans, we have to take into consideration the increasing number of people who are struck by poverty, the number of people who take loans is also increasing. At the moment, based on the data from 2019, each third person who is employed, who has a type of income, has a loan in Montenegro, which is a really, really big number. And all that is pointing us towards a direction that is very well described in the book Utopia for Realists by historian Rutger Bregman. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. And he says that people, when they perceive a lack of something, they operate in a scarcity mentality. They start thinking only about the thing that they don't have, which is easy to understand, especially if that thing is putting food on the table, securing that the children can have access to adequate education, things like that. And especially now, in this time, it's also an additional problem of worrying whether or not I'll lose my job in the next wave of maybe self-isolation, things like that. So in all that, to come and talk about waste to the average person seems also kind of insensitive, unless you tie it with the ways in which that person can also address the things they perceive as scarce while solving environmental problems. So it has to do with promoting maybe some ways of saving money by recycling, of saving money by shopping in bulk, unpackaged produce, and saving money, maybe even making a living through using things that have previously been discarded as materials, so upcycling things, collecting content for recycling. So there's a lot of ways in which this can be addressed, but I don't see a way of it gaining more momentum unless we tie it with the way in which people can really satisfy their elementary needs at this point.
You know, I recently watched a video on environmental tips, rather, you know, how it works in Sweden. So
Mm-hmm.
here, for example, in Ukraine, we do not collect organic waste. And
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed someone on the podcast about vermicomposters, so the composters with worms, quite an avant-garde topic here. So it's not very common, not common at all, to be honest. So Sweden, they have the composters for organic waste in the block of apartments. So you can live in your own apartment, and down in the basement, they collect different types of waste separately. One of those types is organic waste. And what I particularly loved is that there is an information board that shows the cycle. So you put your organic waste in this container, then it goes to that factory, let's call it this way. It transforms into biogas, and this gas is used in the public transport. So not only you blindly put your valuable stuff trash for treasure, they say, and you have zero idea where it's going, what's going on afterwards, you know, who is making money on your waste. But you
Mm-hmm.
literally see, okay, my public transport will cost me this much less if it runs on biofuel, and I contribute to it costing this much and not more. So you
Mm-hmm.
really see the closed loop. So again, back to environmental education, back
Mm-hmm.
to visuals, back to infographics. I
Mm-hmm.
know what I am doing, I know where it's going, and I know how I am personally going to benefit from doing the right thing, you know, financially, as well as, you know, doing simply doing good for the planet. So I really, really love this example. And this is something I think we can all take and implement where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was a little bit a little bit of a turn into waste management, but yet it is about education and it is
Mm-hmm.
about the focus of our today's episode. One last question that I always ask my guests is, what would be one piece of advice you would give to the listeners of Sustainability Explored?
Well, since my presumption is that if they are here, that means that they are already interested in environmental topics and that they are probably even working and being employed with an organization or a business related to sustainability. And my idea for them would be to just sit down and think about the way in which they have been and they currently are communicating environmental topics with people around them so far, both at home and through their work, and then draw a line, and then after that line think about where they want to go with that communication and see if any adaptations should be made, and if yes, what. Do you need maybe more transparency in the way that you about the way in which you do your work? Do you need more easily understandable language that makes people feel like they can really understand what you're talking about and not only feel maybe inadequate when they read and see a few words they don't understand, they push away and don't come back to your content ever again because they're afraid they will be constantly reminded about their inadequacy of consuming it. So also, is your content visible? So as I mentioned, is it sitting in an Excel table somewhere? Are these percentages that are important to you that you want people to know really visible? Are they presented in a easily understandable way, in a shareable way, so to say, so in a way that people can memorize? Like, it's easy to memorize that an average person in Montenegro creates about 2.5 kilograms of trash per day. So things like that, whenever you're doing something, draw out the main things that the average Joe can take, and uh, tailor that to the direction in which you want to go.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks so
Thank
much
you,
for
Anna.
taking your time to join us today at Sustainability Explorer to share with the listeners, and a couple of closing remarks. Again, for the listeners, if you have any questions for me or Andjela, don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn, on our websites. I will leave the Instagram page and the website of Andjela's um, company in the show notes. Yeah, reach out, ask your questions, then share with anyone who you think might benefit from listening to this episode. Share on your social media, leave a review on the platform you're listening on. If you wish to take your review to Podchaser page, I will reply to you in person as I always do. And finally, yes, challenge me with your questions, topics, suggest guests, become a guest yourself. And this was Sustainability Explored, episode number, now attention everybody, episode number 77, season
Oh.
7. Can you believe it?
Yes,
With Andjela
wonderful.
Djuraskovic.
Thank you so much, Anna. And thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, for being with us today, and until next time, next Thursday. Take care, stay sustainable. Bye bye.